Author to Authority podcast. And today I'm excited for the conversation because this is one that I always love to have. And that is how to leverage your book. And I'm so glad to have Richard Lowe on the show with us today. He's a professional ghostwriter and author, so my kind of person. His passion is to help businesses and individuals write books that showcase their expertise, build credibility, and tell their story. Now, Richard has written and published 63 books on a variety of subjects. He has ghostwritten 48 plus books and authored over 1,000 articles for blogs and social media. You will get to learn how to get started on your book and what to do, what to avoid, and how to get published and how to sell copies. So we are going to have an amazing conversation today, Richard. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, we should be able to summarize that in like 1 minute. No, kidding.
You're a writer. You should be able to do better than that.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. It's actually a very well-written bio. I liked it. Richard, I think that, the question I want to start off asking you with is, why is it important to leverage a book? Obviously, we're going to get to the how-to, but I think we need to understand why you have to leverage it.
Okay. Well, my audience or my customers tend to be C-level business people, and generally they're thinking about pivoting their career. So they're in their 50s, usually maybe 40s, and they want to change to something else. Often coaching, moving to a new business, something like that. So what they want to do is establish their credibility, and the best way to do that is with the book that has their story, what they like, what they don't like, all kinds of things anything they want to write about, and they use that book then to get speaking engagements, to get TED Talks, to get press, and all kinds of other things. That's for nonfiction books, of course.
Yes. Fiction's a whole different ball of wax there, and how you market there are some similarities, but how you market a fiction book is definitely different than how you would use a nonfiction book.
And I do both. I do fiction and nonfiction.
Mm-hmm. One thing I was thinking about as you were talking there is the fact that writing a book is not a field of dreams. I have been in talks, workshops, conferences where a publisher will, describe this picture that you write a book and all of this stuff is going to fall into your lap. All these customers are going to fall into your lap, and you'll be on radio and TV because you are now an author. And what they forget to tell you is that the book's only a tool.
Yeah, you still have to promote the book. And use it as a promotion. So you promote it and use it as promotion. So you do both at the same time.
Yeah, and I think, we do, as publishers and writers and ghostwriters, we do our clients a disservice when we give them that impression that, just writing the book is the hard part and then everything comes to you. It's like, no, writing the book is like being pregnant and then you got to raise that kid.
Well, I wouldn't know about that, but I understand.
Are you a father, Richard?
I had a stepson.
You had a stepson. Okay. Yeah. So you know a little bit about the process of raising those kids once they're born.
Yep.
But yeah, like the work doesn't stop just because the book is published. You've now got to use that book to, gain credibility, visibility, memorability, all of these things. And so I'm so excited for today's topic. But first, Richard, I would love for you to share a little bit of your story. How did you get into ghostwriting?
Well, it's an interesting story, and it probably would take about 6 hours to go through, so I'll try and summarize a little bit. I actually ghostwrote my first book when I was in my late teens. It was more for fun than anything else. My grandfather was a World War II vet, and everybody called him weird and said, avoid him. He's cranky. He's going to bite your head off. Well, I wanted to know my grandfather, so I basically told them all middle finger, and went and talked to my grandfather. It turned out that he'd been captured on Corregidor in World War II. He was in the Bataan Death March. He was in a prisoner of war camp for 4 years. So I decided to write his book for him. And it was never published. I was only in my teens, and it was pretty garbagey. But that was my first time trying to write a book, and I fell in love with it. So I got to interview this guy, find out about him. We became kind of friends, which was the rest of the family was looking at me like, okay, you're weird, but that's fine. And then after that, I decided I needed to get a job and get out of the house. So I focused on a career for 33 years and became a tech leader at various places like Trader Joe's and so forth. I was a VP of consulting of several different businesses. And then I decided, okay, I've had enough of this stupid corporate BS and decided to start my own business. I had enough money in the bank that I could do that. So I jumped off the cliff, moved from California to Florida, and found a new place to live and started a business. And I tried everything at the beginning with. I tried affiliate marketing. I tried straight writing. I tried selling on eBay, and I made money at all of them, but nowhere near what I needed to make to pay the bills and so forth. And then I stumbled into ghostwriting. I ran into a ghostwriter at a writing critique group, and he started me writing. And he put me on a memoir of the guy this was before the Soviets invaded Afghanistan. He was the engineer who built all the roads in Afghanistan. This was in the 70s. And what happened to him is he wanted to write a book about his stuff, what happened to him. So he was captured when there was a coup just before the invasion, and he was captured by those people and put under house arrest. And while he's in his house, he got a phone call from somebody he didn't know who said, "Leave now." And he said, "Why?" And he said, "Don't argue. Pack your bags fast. Get out of the house now." So he got out of the house. A big trip down to the Duran line, which is like 1,000 miles down and is considered one of the roughest place on the planet to get through. It's Pakistan and Afghanistan border. Got out. When the Americans came finally after the Soviets left, we looked at the prison he would have been put in. And we found tens of thousands of skeletons of people who were executed. He would have been one of them. So quite a dramatic story. I got paid a whole $1,000 to write that book. I was very excited. I was not excited by the rate. And then I did a couple more. And then I decided, look, I can make a lot more money doing this. My boss said, "No, you can't. You don't know how to market. You don't know how to sell." So I quit. The next day I had a $10,000 book. And the day after that, I had a $15,000 book. So within 2 days, I had $25,000 worth of books and never looked back. It is partially because of my tech background. I had connections in the tech industry, so I was able to find people who wanted to write that kind of book, and it came out pretty good. And when I left Trader Joe's, people were saying, "Well, you're leaving a career in tech, and you can't make any money as a writer." I'm making double what I made at Trader Joe's now, so I pretty much managed to leverage my own experience and my own background and my own story into a writing career. Plus, I learned not to be shy.
Richard, I love it. There's a few things that kind of caught me. And, I think, many of them are passing away now and many of them are gone. But, we look at that generation that went through the war and we wonder what's wrong with them. But, we don't understand the emotional impact that these soldiers went through and the horrific things that they had to do and the horrific things they saw. And, I don't know about you, but I would probably close myself off too. Why would I want to think and remember those things? It's just easier to shove them away. And so, when you don't deal with them, you're usually self-destructive in one of few ways. Either you're angry, grumpy, and miserable, or you're addicted to something. And, kudos to you for, taking the time to get to know your grandfather. But the one other thing you talked about there, and I just think it's important, like you quit your job and the next day you had sales, but I like the fact that you said that you leveraged your network. Yeah. So it wasn't the fact that you're like, anyone can just quit their job, and next day you can earn $25,000, right? Because that's sometimes what people say. But they don't tell you the fact that they spent years building a network of people so that they can go to 2 or 3 people that they know will probably convert pretty easily to get things started. But, when you're first just starting out and you don't have a network and you haven't, built it yet, very rarely can you go out unless you already have a very exceptional sales skills
That was almost
and do that.
500. That was almost 500 phone calls to get those 2 clients over a period of
Well,
several
thank you
days.
for sharing that.
Yeah, it took a lot of
Wow.
work to find them. That was before LinkedIn and social media was really big, and I made a lot of phone calls, hundreds and hundreds of them, and finally, that's what you got to do. I found the best way to find businesses in their face. You connect with them and you talk to them on LinkedIn, or you call them, or you send them a direct email. A lot of the social media stuff takes a lot longer and is a lot more complicated. It's real simple. Pick up the phone and call somebody. And if they don't
Yeah.
like you, they'll tell you. And you better grow a spine and get used to some harsh words, because you're making cold calls. So if you're going to be a ghostwriter, you're going to need a spine.
Most definitely. And I think you need a spine 2 ways because, when I first started ghostwriting, I was on freelancing sites. And so I was just taking any jobs that I could get to gain experience. And I mean, you charged 1,000, I charged 500 for my first book. Like that was,
Yeah.
After that, I realized, man, the amount of hours it took me to write this thing, $500 was nowhere near enough for that amount of work. But, I think the other part of having a spine is knowing who to say no to.
Oh yes, I could tell stories about that.
Yeah, me
I
too.
turned out customers left and right because I got out of corporate America because I didn't want to be in a toxic environment anymore. So why would I create another one? And people can be toxic, so I turned down a lot of business, and I'm in a position where I can do that. I mean,
Mhm.
I charge between $60,000 and $100,000 for a book now, so
Yeah,
I'm growing a long way from the $1,000. But it takes a year. It's a lot of work.
it does. It does. And it's funny. I've had a few people I've turned down, but one person I specifically turned down because this person was toxic. I could already tell by the conversations we were having, and this person was also a lawyer. So I knew if I did the wrong thing, not only was I dealing with a toxic person, but I was dealing with a toxic person who could successfully sue me.
Hmm.
I'm thinking, no, thank you. Uh,
Yeah, I don't generally get near lawyers for that exact reason. It's not that I have any problems with legalities, but um, they tend to be a little harsh, and just haven't done anything for a lawyer. Probably won't. Most of my audience is technical, high level technical,
mhm.
C-level managers and things. They're not the people who are hands on. I mean, somebody who was a lawyer and is now a C-level would be fine, and I have done business with those.
Mhm. Well, Richard, let's shift gears here because I want to get into the topics. So we got some really good time to talk about it. When you were talking, one of the things I was thinking about in terms of leveraging your book, because you talked about actually getting on the phone, which is an amazing tool. But one thing that you can do with your book, which actually will probably more get past a gatekeeper than a phone call, is maybe connecting with this person on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
maybe a short conversation or so, but send them your book.
Sending the book helps, can work, or send them a book that you've written. The problem with ghostwriting is those books are almost always under non-disclosure, so you really can't send them around. I've written a few of my own books, obviously, so I can do that. Yeah, getting past the gatekeeper is not usually difficult for me because I'm high enough level where I can do that. I do a lot of work on LinkedIn. The problem with LinkedIn is people sometimes visit it only once a month. So you send a message and you hear nothing for a month or
Yeah.
2 or 3, and it's not because they're ignoring you; it's because they don't go to LinkedIn. And by the time they get there, your message is buried 1,000 messages down.
Yeah. Well, I guess it depends on your target market. For me, my target market is usually fairly active on LinkedIn, so I don't tend to have that issue. I can't say it never happens, but generally, that's not a problem for me. But I was thinking more of sort of the wow effect, and obviously, one of the things we talk about in Author to Authority is, writing your own book to promote your business. So for
Mm.
you as a ghostwriter, that's a little difficult. You would send other people their books. I have sent some of my clients books, Selling from the Heart, Revenue Growth Engine, The Sport of Life. I have sent some potential clients some of those books, just because they were really good books and relevant to what they were in. But, I think it makes an impression. And
Yeah.
one thing I was thinking of is, actually making, like, getting a really nice box printed, maybe putting a couple extra things in the box with the book, like making it a really nice package that's attractive, especially like if you're going for C-suite.
Yeah, I don't know if that I haven't tried that. I don't know if that would work or not. It's C-suite are more impressed by communication, how well you
Mm-hmm.
talk, that you can talk the talk and walk the walk, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to hear. They do want a copy of the book, but Kindle's usually fine. I usually send them a free Kindle version or something. I haven't tried the gift box. I'm not sure how that would go over, but maybe it work. Maybe it would work.
I think it's just more, it would be impressive.
Yeah.
It shows your professionalism if they get this very, well-designed box with, certain things in it. But
I would be concerned that it shows you're desperate. Also,
hmm, well,
yeah,
we'll have to try it and figure it out. There you go.
give it a shot. Um, when you get a chance, I'll tell you my favorite ghostwriting story. But continue.
Actually, I was just going to turn the stage over to you, Richard, to share what you've prepared for us today.
Well, my favorite ghostwriting story is real brief. I got somebody contacted me from my website. Actually, most of my leads come from my website. And they're very targeted because they want a book by the time they get to me, and they know that I sell books because the website does that. So it came from my website. It's about 3 years ago, and she was 78 years old, and she said, let's get together at Panera Bread. So I went over to Panera Bread, took one look at them, and thought, oh my God, they don't have the money. I mean, they looked like they lived in a trailer, which was true. They actually did. The missing teeth and stuff like that. I mean, exactly what you'd expect from the Beverly Hillbillies, and that's fine. Beverly Hillbillies had a lot of money, but but I was okay, fine. I'll be nice and I'll have lunch with them. There's no way they're going to afford me. She could afford me. Um, this was her book. She wanted to do. It was her whole life. She had been keeping a journal of her dreams through her whole life. And what she wanted me to do was take those dreams, read them, and they were handwritten and little scratch notes that she wrote when she woke up, so they were hard to read. I had her ask her sister to transcribe them, and she did. So we're talking, volumes. At least I didn't have to do that. And then write it into a novel. So we wrote a novel, and it became called Gators in the Soup. It's on Amazon. And it's one of my favorite projects because it meant so much to her, and it was fun to write. It's a young adult and these gators going all through this magical swamp, fighting magical beasts and stuff. It was a lot of fun to write. And she got the book published, and she was so happy and so ecstatic. Her sister was happy, and then COVID hit, and she passed away 2 months after her book was published. And the thing is that it touched me a lot that I was able to have that big of an impact on somebody. The book's still there, of course, and it's probably a few dollars is going into a bank account that nobody's looking at, but it's a fun book. I'm pretty proud of it, and it's tough converting dreams into a novel, especially when they're all disjointed. So that's my favorite story. It's really got nothing to do with business. Except one of the things is don't judge a book by its cover, because I completely misjudged them on the first go around. Fortunately, I'm smart enough where I just said, okay, fine, I'll just have a good lunch and talk to them, and it'll be fine. So I learned a lot from that. Is people aren't always the way they appear, which is, I guess, something I should have already known because I'm getting old, and So that was my favorite story. Writing is hard. What's even harder is doing something with that writing. So I offer the whole package to people. So you come to me and you want a book. You get a book. I help you market it. I help you find the right people to do the book cover. And if If you need a publisher, if you want to go traditional publisher, I do write the book proposal. Traditional publishers require a book proposal. It's a marketing tool. Obviously, self-publishing does not. I can do the whole self-publishing thing, everything, including the marketing part. And I outsource a lot of the marketing, and it just goes through me, or direct. I don't care. But what I found is people hire ghostwriters. They write a book, and then they have a book. Now what do they do with it? They don't know. So the books that they spent, $20, $40, $30,000 on a book, and it sits there on their bookshelf, and they give it away to parents and grandmother and stuff like that, and that's all they do with it. And that's kind of sad. So I added all these other layers to be able to help them more than the writing. And for example, with my customers now, we write a LinkedIn post several times a month. They tag me. I add to the post. I say, oh, this, I'm working with this guy as a book coach, and we're doing this and this and this, and I learned this and this and this about his subject, and we kind of build on each other so that he's getting the advantage of my network, which is pretty big on LinkedIn, and he's got a pretty big network, or they usually do. Some of them don't. And we leverage the book together. So by the time the book is published, it's got an audience who want to buy it. And then I recommend they do a book launch party with as many as 1,000 people at the launch party, a virtual launch party, of course, and hire a host. I know a great guy who does radio, who used to do real radio years ago. He was like in the time of Wolfman Jack, that kind of time period. If you remember Wolfman Jack, he has the same kind of voice. He's a really, really good guy. So he does the hosting, and then you have somebody do the admin, and you run that virtual thing. By the end of it, and you have a special going on your book, and by the end of it, you probably sold 100 copies of your book. Because it's very important to sell as many copies as you can in that first week, because Amazon knows your demographics and their demographics, and it will promote your book to whatever sold in the first 2 weeks. So if whoever buys your book is in the tech field, it's going to sell to people who are in the tech field. If your book is if your book market is teachers, but you're promote people who bought it in that first 2 weeks are in the tech field, and you want it to go to teachers, it's not going to be matched right. So you need to make sure that match is correct. And there's whole books on the algorithm, but that's a big part of it. Is it learns a lot during that first 2 weeks, and it gives you an extra boost. So if you can't sell it in the first 2 weeks, you're probably not going to sell it.
Yeah, I agree. Richard, we're going to shift gears here because you have written many, many books.
I have.
And so, first of all, I would love for you to share with me one of the books that you'd like to promote today. And then I'm going to ask you the question I ask every author that comes on the show.
Okay. Well, I can hardly wait for that surprise question. Most of my books were written several years ago because I realized that I needed to have something to show, and I couldn't show my ghostwritten books. Probably the book that it's sold probably a dozen copies that I'm most proud of is Safe Computing is Like Safe Sex. If you don't practice it, you're not safe. It's like you gotta walk the walk instead of just talking the talk. It's the first one I did. It didn't sell because there's so many cybersecurity books out there, but it's the one I'm most proud of because I spent a lot of time on it. It's got diagrams and pictures and all kinds of cool stuff. So you could actually go to coolauthor.com, and it lists all my books. And I've got coloring books. I got about 20 coloring books. I got in a coloring book thing. It was a big rage before. Now with AI, coloring books are like, you can spit one out in 15 minutes, and there's a bazillion of them on Amazon. But I used to photograph dancers and models, so I put out 4 belly dance coloring books, and because I had a market, and I sold about 1,000 copies because they all bought it because they were in it, and they were, oh, am I in this edition of it, and they all grabbed it and bought it, and all their friends, they were really excited about it. And I was pretty proud of those. They came out pretty good. I hired the artist is not the greatest. The art's okay. I actually want to redo the art, and I'm thinking of doing AI and throwing it out the book and say, improve this. That just see if it can make the art a little bit better. She used a pencil, and I would prefer it to be darker. But those I'm pretty proud of. They came out good, and the audience loved it. I did a book, Focus on LinkedIn. It's a little outdated because it was written before Microsoft bought LinkedIn. But I do LinkedIn profiles for people to promote themselves. I was a LinkedIn branding expert for a company run by Donna Serdula, who wrote LinkedIn for Dummies. And I did about 300 LinkedIn profiles. I'm real proud of that one. It became a bestseller. It sold about 15,000 copies in 3 days. I had a nice launch party for it and everything, and it went really well. That one is pretty good, and the concepts still apply. It's just there's a lot more to LinkedIn now than there was 6 years ago when I wrote it, 7 years ago. And then How to Sell on eBay is another one that sold, I think, 5,000 copies in a matter of 1 day. Those are all books that I'm proud of. But if you go to coolauthor.com, you can find them all and have at it.
Nice. So I'm going to ask you the question. Are you ready, Richard?
I don't know. Deep breath. I'm scared.
So pick one of the books and tell me, what was the good, the bad, and the ugly about writing, editing, and publishing it?
I will take a ghostwritten book, so I won't tell the title, but we started the project, and the good was by then I had smoothed out the process. So my process is I write 7 books at a time. So I have 7 clients going at any one time. So this is one of them. So I have to set up the process. So it's not multitasking. I call it multi-threading, where I do a bit of each book each day and make forward progress, because I found otherwise I tend to procrastinate, and at the end of the month I wind up doing a bazillion things in one day, and I can't survive that way. So the process of writing is interviewing the client, getting their view on it, doing research, writing, getting them to revise it, which with ghostwritten books is sometimes difficult because they hired me because they don't have the time. So getting them to give me the time can be difficult, sometimes impossible. So sometimes I'll get a book that they just say, write the book on this subject. And I'm like, okay, what do I write? What do I do? And just write it. I don't care. So those are the ones I hate, because I don't know. By the time the book's done, I'm like, is it okay? You know. The one I'm doing now, that I'm talking about, I'm revising it every day. They go in. I'm writing like 500 to 1,000 words a day, so it's easy for them to review it. They can review it in an hour. They can make time, and we're doing it all offline. Did a lot of interviews up front. It's going very well. He's a really nice guy. And then once that's hard enough to write the book, and imagine writing a book pretending you're somebody else. That's the hard part of ghostwriting. If you hired me as a ghostwriter, I'm you while I'm writing that book, and remember, I'm doing 7 at a time, so I'm switching between different personalities all day long. That's interesting, especially when one of them hangs over and goes into my real life, my personal life. Like, why are you acting so weird? Oh, sorry. Like, one of my authors curse a lot, and his book has a lot of curse words in it. So it would go over in real life. I'd be cursing like a sailor. I'd make sailors look blush. And gotta stop that. I'm going out into public now. Then the hard part is doing the marketing. It's always the hard part. Unless I'm writing for a marketing company. That's the part where authors fail 99% of the time. They write this book, they love the book, they hit the wall of marketing, boom, they don't know what to do. And the ghostwriting ones, it's very common that they just sit on the shelf because they have no idea what to do after that. And hire a marketer, I mean, you're paying me $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. You're going to pay the same for a marketer who knows what he's doing. So you better make sure that book is what you want. And I do a lot of that vetting up front to make sure the book is what they need and want, and to make sure it's the right book. And I vet it all along. That's why I have the writing, and then they review it the same day, because I want to make sure I'm writing the book that they want before we get to the end, because there's nothing worse than having to rewrite a whole book. Oh, I'm sorry, I wanted it in first person. Oh, God.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah, that turned out to be very common where they changed that, or it's supposed to be in present tense, not past tense. You're kidding me, right? We're halfway through the book. Why didn't this come up earlier? With ghostwriting, the problem is none of that. The problem is managing the client and the client's expectations.
Yes.
So I have to make sure that they're informed all along with what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and what their role is, and be a project manager. If they wander away because they're busy, pull them back. If I can't pull them back, do the best I can and make the book happen. Because it's my income, pays the rent, goes into the bank, whatever. So that's why I have 7 in case one of them goes away. I don't have an immediate, oh my God, how am I going to pay the rent? If you only got 1, it's like, oh boy. If you got 7 at a time and you're putting money in the bank and stuff. Oh yeah. Ghostwriting is freelance. This is something I really, really want to mention because it's very, very important. It's probably the most critical rule of freelance. It is up and down. It is feast or famine. So you hit the holidays, you hit about September, October-ish, sales go boom, and you get nothing till maybe February. And so for 4 months, you're not getting any leads are not converting because they're out of town. They're having Christmas. They're doing whatever they do. Right now, leads are really tough. We're coming up on some holidays, big ones, 4th of July, Memorial Day. There's no leads. So use this time to build those leads. So probably the best advice I could give to anybody who's freelance writing is understand it's feast or famine and make sure you've got at least 4 to 6 months in the bank or you're going to be in trouble. The more you can have in the bank, the better. Books
so
are hard.
Richard, unfortunately, we are out of time.
Oh, darn. I thought we had 16 hours.
Richard, I would love for you to share just one very quick final thought. And if you have something that you'd like to either give away or promote, you can do that as well.
Well, my final thought is if you've got a book and you write it, if you don't know how to write it or you don't have the time, hire a ghostwriter. If you don't have the money or the time and it's important to you, you'll find the money and the time. And that's the key point about you as a client is I hear a lot of people say, well, I don't have the money. Well, you had the money for that vacation. You had the money for that heart transplant you needed, whatever, you have the money for the important stuff. If writing your book is important, you'll find the money. If it's not important, if you can't find the money, it's not important. So figure out what's important in your life and pursue that. And you'll find that you can raise the money and do whatever you need to do. As far as a giveaway, go to my website and go to the contact field and schedule. If you need book coaching, schedule a free call. You can schedule up to an hour and we can talk about whatever kind of problem you're having. I do book coaching. I also do LinkedIn profiles and LinkedIn coaching. So if you need help with something like you're stuck on a book, you can call me. I'll talk to you about your problem. I'll give you a few tips. And then if you want to buy an engagement, that would be anywhere from 4 hours to 10 hours at a time. And we can figure out your problem. That's thewritingking.com. So it's thewritingking.com spelled out.
Awesome.
And you can go there. There's lots of links to my scheduling tool. Schedule a time and put a little sentence as to what you need so I can be a little bit ready. And we'll talk.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Richard.
My pleasure.
Audience, if you wonder where to go next, I have started doing weekly training videos on thought leadership, book publishing, visibility, credibility, all of those types of things so that you can actually become the authority in your niche, depends which country you're from. So I'd love to direct you to the power of a professional story. If you're planning on writing a book, knowing which story to tell is crucial. So you know the routine. My daughter has placed the thumbnail here on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. If you are listening in on the podcast, the link to the video will be in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here today, and we'll see you on the very next episode. Bye now.
Bye.